Welcome to week 2 of this 8-week Stay With Yourself course for creating a soulful and lifelong meditation. I hope you are feeling truly supported by last week's practice, just sitting with practicing your posture and breathing more deeply into your body. I know that if you're new to meditation or you've only dabbled in it a little bit, and even if you've been meditating for a long time, starting out on this very basic level can actually be a bit uncomfortable. So I hope that you've been able to practice some grace and some love for yourself, and that you're feeling supported. That's really what I hope for you, and that gets to be a foundation you come back to as often as you need. So with that foundation set, after having spent a week really practicing posture and breath and experimenting with where we want to meditate and when we want to meditate and what props we want to use and what position we want to sit in or lay down in while we're meditating, I hope that you're feeling a bit more just established in your daily practice. But I also know it's only been a week, so it's still new. So if you're still experimenting and if there's still some things that aren't quite jiving, and you feel like you're kind of still wanting to play around with stuff, you're welcome to do that. But let this second week here be a time when you really begin to settle into your practice, because as we start practicing clearing internal space, which is what this week is for, it does require us to be still. And we get to be still in our bodies, like with our posture, and we get to practice with our breath. But there's another layer that we're going to be practicing. And you might have noticed this coming up last week. You might have sat in meditation and felt really tired or antsy, or you might have been yawning a lot, or you might have had emotions coming up. You might have found yourself, crying and being surprised, or thinking of things that you haven't thought of in a really long time, or it's very possible, and I'm sure likely, that you've been noticing some things about what's happening inside of you just over the last week. So that's why we're doing this week 2 on clearing internal space, starting to create some spaciousness, some room for everything going on inside of us to come to the surface, for us to be able to hold it, to see it, to spend time with it, and to really let it be an opportunity for us to notice and to see ourselves in ways that we maybe haven't been for a long time. So as always, I have my notes here because I know that there's some things I want to make sure that I talk about. And the first thing I put on my notes is this clearing of internal space. It's about coexisting with our thoughts and our emotions. Coexisting. Letting our thoughts be here. Letting our emotions be here. Even letting the bodily sensations be here. And we still get to be at peace. Right? So we're not trying to get rid of thoughts. As I talked about last week in the body, as soon as we resist, it's like we hold on tighter. As soon as there's any kind of like fighting against something, that becomes tight in our body, in our energy, in our life. And we all have control issues. Every single one of us. We are all controlling on some level. It's very unique to each of us. So we try to do that with our meditation, with our thoughts, or with our emotions too. And we judge, this is a good thought, that's a bad thought. It's a good emotion, that's a bad emotion. And we either cling to one and we push another away, or vice versa, right? So our work really in terms of clearing internal space, and you'll find this with the meditation that you're listening to every day this week, a lot of it is about going deep into that inner stillness and allowing anything that's coming up to bubble up and just to observe it, to observe what is happening inside of you. We're not doing anything with it at all, okay? And I know I keep saying this, but we're not. We're just observing. We're observing this week. So again, if you didn't journal much last week, or you haven't wanted to journal or write, I encourage you to use the materials in this course of what's being offered to you in the expanded practices and in the journaling prompts and in the questions that are being asked, to start observing what is actually going on with you. Because a lot of times we think that the problem is out there. The problem is this: if this thing out here changed, or if I could just have control over this, everything would be fine, right? So what is all of that? What's all that that's happening inside of you that's causing these reactions, right? So we're not trying to change it, we're just noticing. And my second note here is use the thoughts that come up in silence to inform you about what's going on. Checking in. Okay, so I'm sitting in silence, sitting in stillness, and this is what keeps coming up, and it keeps coming up, it keeps coming up. Okay, what is that telling me? First, it's probably telling you this thing needs some attention. And that's what happens sometimes in meditation, is everything is finally like, ooh, finally some attention. Ooh, we got still enough, and it all comes bubbling to the surface, right? So we're just letting it be and we're observing it. What's it telling us about ourselves? And then the journaling practice. Honestly, it clears so much space. So if there's really a lot going on for you, if you sit down to meditate and there's a lot happening for you or throughout the day, sitting down to write it out, to put it out on the page just over and over and over. Like for me, if you were to read any of my journals, first of all, they'd mostly be illegible because they start out all clean, and nice. And then as my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts start coming out, I'm just like, wah, right? All over the page. And you couldn't even read it if you wanted to. And even if you did read it, no one really wants to read that, right? And it's not for anybody, it's for you. So even in terms of a journaling practice, if you're not used to writing, we can call it a writing practice, a note-taking practice. You can call it an observational practice. Just writing down your observations, whatever you want to call it. It is taking what's in here and it is moving it out. And that is what we're doing this week. We're taking what's coming up and we're moving it outside of ourselves, and we're looking at it and we're observing it and writing it down, taking what is like intangible and kind of whatever and making it real on the page. Literally moves it out of your body. I don't know how it happens. I don't know why it happens. I don't know why this is a real thing, but it works. It really, really works. I promise. So take what's coming up for you. And if your practice needs to be that you just sit down every day and you just barf onto the page, do it. It's yours. It's yours to do with what you will. Your journaling, your writing practice. It doesn't need to be pretty. It's not expected to be pretty, and you're not showing it to anyone. And if you need to burn those pages later in order to do another layer of releasing and clearing internal space because you've poured it out and now you're burning it and offering it to the heavens to do with this what you will, just let yourself breathe in that relief of having looked at it and released it. Okay, that's a certain level of what we're doing this week. Another way that we can clear internal space is to go outside and go on a walk. Just being in nature. Looking at how still nature is, at how calm it is. There's something about just being outside in the fresh air, whether it's raining, whether it's sunny, whether it's cold, whether it's warm, whether you're sweating or freezing, whatever's happening for you. Just going outside and moving your body. Just the rhythm of walking, this rhythmic pace helps move the thoughts through. It gives energy, it gives movement to the thoughts, so you're not so stuck. You might go out and think, oh, I'm going to just go on this walk and ruminate about this thing, but that's another part about noticing the mind. Notice that the mind will focus on something and it'll jump to something else. And even if we think we're thinking about something constantly, we're really not. Isn't that amazing? So you might think of something regularly and often, but the mind is so jumpy. It jumps from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another. So notice that too. Notice how your mind jumps around a lot to a lot of different thoughts. And you'll notice this even when you're on it's a little bit like being on social media and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and the one thing and another, right? And notice too what emotions are coming up in your body when you have thoughts. You think a thing and now suddenly you're anxious, and you think a thing and now suddenly you're jealous, and you think a thing and now suddenly you're unhappy with your life, or you're scared, or you think a thing and you're happy. right? Notice how our thoughts inform our emotions and the connections. So again, we're noticing and we're just starting to clear it out and bring it outside of us a little bit so we can look at it. We don't have to carry it in here. We get to look at it, right? Another way that you can clear internal space is, you've heard the saying, sow within, sow without. Sometimes it's sow without, sow within. So if you're living in a particularly chaotic or messy environment, or there's something that could be cleaned up in your external space, be active this week in your literal clearing of internal space. You might find that if you just started taking action on a project that's been sitting there, like cleaning out the garage or hanging those curtains that you bought a year ago, or, doing yard work or whatever it is, it could actually, just doing that, cleaning out the garage, doing the thing, hanging the curtains, cleaning off your desk, you could end up just, you just feel so relieved. There could just be this real strong sense of clearing internal space because you cleared something externally. You could feel a lot more space being cleared internally as well too. So notice that. And that could be the same for people. If you're going throughout this 8-week course and you're really aware that there are some people that just having them in your life really doesn't feel good for you, and having space from them and kind of clearing that energy out of your life with other people or things or circumstances, give yourself permission to do that. And feel free to communicate with people about that too. Just be like, I'm really taking some time for myself, and I promise it's not personal, because it's not. This is about you. It's not about anyone else. But I just need some time. I need some space. I'll reach out when I'm ready, right? I have a whole course on Insight Timer on boundaries and also when relationships end. If that's anything that's coming up for you, if part of clearing out your external environment is going to bring you more space internally, it's going to help you clear out some room internally, feel free to check those out, okay? And another practice I really love is, again, I have a meditation on Insight Timer called Harmony. It's a harmony meditation, but it gives the visualization of imagining your body as a vase, like an empty vessel. And you're using breath, like we practiced in week 1, to breathe deeply into this empty vessel, to bring up all the debris, the clutter, the emotions, right? It's kind of kicking it all up with the inhale, and on the exhale, we're breathing it out, right? So we're breathing in, it's kicking up all the debris in our empty vessel, clearing out all our cells and everything we're holding on to. And then as we exhale, it's released, right? So use breath, use walking, declutter your physical environment, your emotional environment, your relational environment, right? Clear off your calendar, start saying no to some things. Like I said, the boundaries course I have an Insight Timer is actually called Learn How to Say No, right? So that can be part of the clearing internal space process too. Maybe it's easier to start at the outside and work your way in, or start at the inside and work your way out. A lot of times they go hand in hand, okay? But enjoy this week. Enjoy it. Play with it. We are meant to be playing with these. Do the journaling exercises. Do the expand your practice exercises, right? Put the screensavers on your phone and your desktop and your iPad, okay? Actually immerse yourself in this process and make this entire week about clearing internal space and external space while you're at it, or vice versa, okay? So good. And if it becomes overwhelming, again, back off. Let yourself back off. This is yours. There's infinite grace. This is a lifelong practice. We're not in a rush. We're not in a hurry. Take your time. Okay. Sending you so much love. May you stay with yourself today and always.